Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and buckle the truckins uppins because we are going to be doing it live and we are going to be doing it late night, and this is probably going to be way longer than I want it to be. But what we're going to be talking about is the quote-unquote ex-conspiracy guy, quote-unquote conspiracy theories, okay, and mainstream propaganda. Don't worry, much more. So what made me do this video? Well, let's start with the fact that when I put stuff out on Twitter, normally when I get an anonymous troll who posts something, that's basically either mainstream narrative or they're trying to dismiss you or your ideas or contradict you or try to make you look foolish, or in the case of this gentleman the other day, basically use accusatory language that I didn't even read an article that I posted a headline of, and we're going to go over that article ad nauseum, plus a lot more, from the New York Times, where it says America has a free speech problem. Now, yes, the headline is completely repugnant. The article is worse because they sit there and they pose as saviors, but as we've shown you previously and we'll show you again, what they're actually doing is calling for censorship. And then they are lying about conservatives, and I'm no conservative, I'm no Democrat, okay? I'm not a Republican, okay? It's ridiculous. I'm not a liberal, I'm a human being, okay? And in this, it lies about the quote-unquote Florida Don't Say Gay bill, and you know how I feel about the sexualization of children on any level. It's unbelievable that mainstream media would attack concerned parents over such matters and then act like it's a free speech issue where they're trying to ban words or books altogether. That's not reality. We'll get to that. Okay. But again, New York Times has tried to be the quote-unquote arbiter of truth, and they're the ones that can no longer be questioned. Well, I would encourage people to go check out my interview with Kevin Roose of the New York Times. Is Kevin Roose of the New York Times a reliable source? He's a blue check mark. And he had interviewed me for a podcast for the anniversary of 9/11 on the Daily. And I said, look, I only do these things if you allow me to tape it live, and then I won't put out, the entire interview that we do live as long as you agree to come on my show and answer for what you've done. Okay? And one of the things he asked me before authoritatively basically saying that I'm a liar and I get everything wrong, and I confronted him on that in that interview, and he, couldn't really admit to that. He had to use language. Of course, he's, I asked him, specifically, for instance, did General Mahmoud Ahmed, wire $100,000 to the hijackers via the ISI, and did Joe Biden meet with that person the week of 9/11? Am I completely wrong about that? And he's like, well, I didn't want to debate you about this. But in the interview specifically, he asked me if there were any ideas or thoughts or speech that shouldn't be out there. And that is, to me, is a crazy thing to even say. Okay? Why is that crazy to say to me? Because when you say something that is distasteful or untrue or even abhorrent, disturbing, and disgusting, there should be other language, and other points that can be put out there, all right, and then used against. Language is not the thing. Actions on language and behavior is what we should be judging. But again, New York Times they're the thought police. Took them over a year and a half to acknowledge, or not over a year and a half, just about a year and a half, to acknowledge the Biden laptop. Give me a break. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm gonna kind of take you through this exchange and so many other things. And the thing was that I said, you know what? I usually only tweet once to the quote-unquote anonymous loser accounts. That's what I call them. There's plenty of them. This person, although much of the account is anonymous, Okay? It has a link to a Facebook profile where he was recently on the news talking about being a quote-unquote ex-conspiracy guy. And he runs this thing. So I'm going to put it out to this guy. His name's Jonathan. He's more than welcome on the show. I saw him tweeting in there. We are going to arrange it. We have conversations here. And he can tell me what I'm getting wrong, especially after this broadcast, and where I'm coming up with quote-unquote conspiracy theories, all right, that are against the general narrative. Because now he's, as he'll explain in this backstory piece, he's gone to university now. So obviously he's smarter than that, than to get into quote-unquote conspiracy theory. So I want to, highlight a couple things. First of all, this is the tweet that really started it all today. Had nothing to do with the New York Times article, although we're going to get there. Because, again, he made accusatory remarks that I didn't read the article when I did, in fact, read the article, and I covered it. And we're going to go into why it is terrible. But the first thing is first. I said, the CFR praising Mao, ... And that's what this is. All right? Now, this is the Council on Foreign Relations' own Twitter account saying, under Mao Zedong's leadership, life expectancy in China surged by 20 years. Well, is that without you counting the genocide and democide that is not mentioned anywhere in this article? Okay, so this is where we're going to start this thing. All right, think global health, and I did read the piece. Nowhere was the authoritarianism of the regime. No, this is a praise piece. And why is that? Because the global model is China for a quote-unquote new world order. Say it with me now. New world order. And that's getting a lot of attention today because Joe Biden said it, either really in or out of context, depending on how you view the term. But here we did a film called Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. Okay? And when I see articles like this, growing old in China in the age of abundance, all right? And you go through this. Yeah, I mean, half a century ago, no one in their wildest dreams could have imagined the China of today. No, they're not fawning over Mao and authoritarianism. What are you talking about? This guy is so that's the tweet that, let's just show his response that got me going. What is controversial to say? Did you read the article? I'm like, yeah, I did. I mean, I'm not a CFR guy. So we're going to take you through a bunch of quotations on the New World Order, okay, especially during what? The Bush presidency, the first Bush presidency, the Reagan-esque era of the rise of the neocons, okay? Now, if you watched my video on Klaus Schwab and on Herman Kahn and also on Henry Kissinger, we played you a piece of Invisible Empire, which we're going to play you the tail end of right now, where we showed you that Kissinger was basically working on behalf of this thing he's talked about many, many times, which is globalization, okay, and the New World Order. And Time Men of the Year for building that quote-unquote New World Order. Indonesia, a big part of that new order. And we played you the Nixon clip. Well, we're going to not only play you now all of these clips of a quote-unquote New World Order, Madeleine Albright and others commenting on it. Madeleine Albright even acknowledges the fact that the older terminology of the New World Order was what? Nazi terminology and Reich terminology, and Hitler brings the world new order. FDR said, yes, these men and their hypnotized followers call this new order. It is not new, and it is not order. I didn't say those words, and you'll see in a moment, I documented this. I studied this for a very long time, and historically, after that, we're also going to get into what? The Council on Foreign Relations and how it relates to the so-called New World Order. Buckle up, because after we get to this piece, then we're going to do the New York Times. Then we're going to play the backstory piece. Then, as the backstory piece is being played, we're going to play sections of Loose Change final cut. So thumbs it up, subscribe, and share.
Time magazine recognized both Nixon and Kissinger as Men of the Year after announcing their New World Order in China. However, they were working on it long before. In these once classified documents, they both discussed the New Order with the president of Indonesia. Mainstream media was even critical of Kissinger's vision in the early 70s.
In ragged, spasmodic fashion, a new world order is coming into being, but it looks less and less like the world order that Mr. Kissinger had constructed in his own mind.
Kissinger's New World Order would fall under the radar for some time. However, it saw a vast revival during the first Bush administration. Here is Brent Scowcroft, former vice chairman of Kissinger Associates and former national security advisor under both Ford and Bush Sr.
And by the way, you know, you see Kissinger there, you see Rumsfeld, that's Gerald Ford, you see Rockefeller there, Scowcroft. You got some big players in the globalist neocon movement at the time.
As he discusses the New World Order.
Looking at the subtitle this morning, Are We Ready for the New World Order? Gives me something of the shudders. That phrase, New World Order, I'm afraid I'm partly responsible for resurrecting.
So again, Scowcroft is admitting that this was terminology that's been out there for a long time. Go watch my film, and you can actually see books written by Samuel Zane Batten, for instance, that talk about this collectivism and global order, that one under the guise of Christianity. Anyone can get that book, by the way.
To me, what that symbolized was perhaps a fundamental change in the character of our response to national security issues.
Here, Charlie Rose asked Scowcroft, Kissinger, and former national security advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski if we are living in a new world order.
Where are we as we think about this time in American foreign policy? Are we at a special moment which is being redefined? Or are we creating a new world order?
We're at a moment when the international system is in a period of change like we haven't seen for several hundred years. In some parts of the world, the nation state on which the existing international system was based is either giving up its traditional aspects, like in Europe, or as in the Middle East.
George H.W. Bush would campaign for a new world order like no other president before him. He would openly discuss it during his State of the Union address.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Again, a unified Europe was a major goal in creating this order.
With few exceptions, the world now stands as one. A year and a half ago, in Germany, I said that our goal was a Europe whole and free. Tonight, Germany is united. Europe has become whole and free. The world can therefore seize this opportunity to fulfill the long-held promise of a new world order. We can find meaning and reward by serving some higher purpose than ourselves.
What's that? Is that
a shining purpose?
Is that 1,000 points of light, George?
The illumination of 1,000 points of light.
Bush Sr. and his administration would tour and promote this agenda across the board at any given opportunity.
The president has spoken often of a new world order.
And we have an unprecedented opportunity to build a new era of peace and prosperity here and abroad, to build a new world order.
It's my understanding, I think, that the president, and I don't know the context of how it came up in his speech last night in New York, said that China must be a part of the new world order. Guess I would like to ask you how you envision China fitting into the new world order.
Yeah, how do you envision that?
It is a country that we are going to have relationships with by virtue of its geopolitical importance.
American officials say breaking down regional and national barriers to the flow of goods and services would represent a spectacular benefit to economies around the world.
We are building a new world order.
Bush would actually make a commencement address at Maxwell Air Force Base declaring the birth of this order.
And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach. In the coming weeks, I'll be talking in some detail about the possibility of a new world order emerging after the Cold War. But today, I want to discuss another aspect of that order. You see, as the Cold War drew to an end, we saw the possibilities of a new order in which nations work together. It refers to new ways of working with other nations to deter aggression and to achieve stability. As old threats recede, new threats emerge. The quest for the new world order is in part a challenge to keep the dangers of disorder at bay.
Oh, disorder? Like challenging narratives? Right? The great narrative, for instance, that's being promoted by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab. Malinformation now by our own military-industrial complex that was highly mobilized and empowered through the Bush administration, and yes, even the Reagan administration, as we also expose in documentary films, through the National Program Office, amongst other places.
We must build on the successes of Desert Storm to give new shape and momentum to this new world order. Only when this transformation is complete will we be able to take full measure of the opportunities presented by this new and evolving world order. The new world order really is a tool for addressing a new world of possibilities. This order gains its mission and shape not just from shared interests, but from shared ideals.
After the Gulf War had ended, Bush was so obsessed with the idea of a new world order that he had a series of Glocks imprinted with the term that he would give to members of his administration, including Colin Powell, Brent Scowcroft, Dick Cheney, and General Norman Schwarzkopf.
I want people to think about how dark that is. All right? Throughout this whole time you heard him talking, he's not talking about a constitutional republic. He's talking about a shared vision and globalization and shared ideals. What, at the what? Barrel of a gun? And then you see what happens with the quote-unquote war on terror? Give me a break.
Cheney would even approve policy papers regarding the New World Order.
Defense Secretary Dick Cheney has approved a revised draft of a policy document on the New World Order. The Pentagon is backing off a controversial earlier draft and has abandoned a one superpower strategy. The final document puts more emphasis on international alliances and organizations.
This would become an unprecedented time period for people all over the globe to discuss at length what the New World Order meant to them. People within the media.
Does anybody want to talk about the New World Order? Is there a New World Order out there, or is this a vision that exists in the... Yeah, it does have its vision, there's no doubt about that. But does that exist in the president's mind, or does it exist out there in reality?
This president sees this episode as the first test case, as the first example for the New World Order he is trying to organize.
Some people have called it the New World Disorder, and there's a lot of truth to that.
University and institutional chairs.
I mean, we're talking a new world order at Georgetown. And we'd like to be very much a part of it and continue to live.
This is a world that is likely to be dominated in the near future, and perhaps longer, by the Gulf War and the New World Order, which is the buzzword of the moment.
So the secret of a new world order, and at this point it's just a slogan, but it does have some historical background in terms that orders have succeeded each other over time. The secret of this is to learn how to use coalitions. We are effective in the United Nations.
Ooh, the UN. And we too do talk about the League of Nations and the United Nations. But the reason we're going into this is because this all kicks off with what? Roundtable groups, okay? The Royal Institute of Affairs, and what in this country is the CFR, which brings us back to that tweet. And the CFR is all about unelected bureaucrats managing our government on behalf of a globalist predator class agenda.
People within government.
George Bush has invoked a new world order without enunciating a new American purpose. The president has still failed to articulate clear goals for our nation's foreign policy in this new age.
I find the term New World Order very revolting, and just not only historically but politically today. I think Harding is absolutely right, and the actions of the administration just after enunciation of the New World Order put the lie to the fact there is any real substance behind what they say as New World Order. The first act of the New World Order was A, to make war, and then B, was to sell arms all over again.
Oh man, did he nail that? Did he nail that? You know? And again, there were some people at the time who were like, what are these guys talking about? What is going on? And I'm pretty sure that guy was a Democrat. Imagine that.
Is there a new world order? We know certainly that George Bush has copyrighted the term at this point. In the aftermath of this war, though, is it an empty vessel into which something will be poured? Is it the appropriate term to use? Is it going to be a new world order, or will disorder be just as significant in this process as we look ahead? Let's start with Madeline.
I think that we have, in fact, kind of had this term thrown at us, and many of us have not liked it, partially because of the previous historical connotation, and partially because I think it doesn't really deal with the way the world ought to be or is at the moment. But we are far from seeing a world order, and I'm not sure that it is in best U.S. interest to have a new world order in which we are the policeman.
And yet, later on, when the war on terror in Iraq comes, she's on videotape essentially lauding the fact that we had so many women and children, plus the civilian casualties, via their Iraq war and their Afghanistan invasion. You know, she's very glib about that. Not a big deal to people like Madeleine Albright.
While many began to become critical of this order, the term began to evaporate into the background.
We are very, very skeptical of an international order if we are not sure how the rules will be made, because thus far the international order has been made with rules that we had no input into and that affect us, and even when on the few occasions when the rules will seem to favor us, then they get changed.
Does that sound like any time period that you know of when we were listening to any, I don't know, World Health Organization of any kind? Does it? Just think about that. Man, I hope people go back and watch my films, especially Invisible Empire, A New World Order to find 2+ hours, and shade the motion picture after this.
A unipolar world, a world of one superpower, may be quite dangerous for us.
A new world order under the United Nations would mean, among other things, an end to our God-given rights given us and secured by the Constitution.
The New World Order, which now has been called by some the New World Disorder, and by some people on the more liberal persuasion, the taking over of the world by the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the UN to put us all in slavery.
Now let's just stop that. Scowcroft is a Republican and a conservative at the time. And people that were saying that at the time were of what? A more liberal persuasion. But now if someone says that, it's right-wing propaganda. All right? And now we're going to bring you into the Council on Foreign Relations, which in many cases is really the mouthpiece of this agenda.
But what are these organizations? Who founded them? And what are the stated goals of each? Before we begin with the Council on Foreign Relations, let's delve further into history to understand roundtable groups and their origins.
Its roots go way, way back in history, and they go back to the formation of a secret society, a secret organization that was created by Cecil Rhodes, very powerful and very wealthy individual. And
Cecil Rhodes, by the way, has essentially been canceled in many universities. His statues taken down. I think in some cases, actually in the right manner, wasn't mob rule and we're just tearing them down. No, they acknowledged that this guy wasn't, they're not talking about the quote-unquote New World Order and his roundtable groups, right? But they are talking about what his exploitation and his racism via the indigenous populations, which, Britain colonized.
People have heard about him in history, and they know about the Rhodes Scholarship, and they think, well, isn't that nice? They don't understand at all what that's all about. Cecil Rhodes, when he died, left his great fortune not to his family, not to his heirs, but for the creation of a secret society. And we know about this because there were some people very intimately involved with this organization who wrote about it. One of the best authors on this topic is Professor Carroll Quigley. He wrote several books, and Tragedy and Hope is the best known of his. He described in detail this secret organization created by Cecil Rhodes, and he explains in these books he knows about them because he was invited by the organization into its inner circle. He was never a member of it, but he was invited in as their historian, and he was allowed to see their secret records and papers and study them for several years. And he knew all the important players, and he understood what it was about, and so he wrote these books. It's an amazing thing because he laid out in great detail what the purpose of the organization was and how they were the major players in all of the big international events since and including World War I.
And I want to point out that Quigley was actually a professor and somewhat of a mentor to Bill Clinton. All right, Quigley's a big name. That's a big, thick book, okay? I would encourage you to look into the work of G. Edward Griffin, but you know me, I love raw materials. I've never read that entire book. In fact, I've never even read The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is written by G. Edward Griffin, but I've never professed to.
The bottom line is that you take the roots of that organization and you find out that they created in all of the British dependencies what they call roundtable groups. And then around those little roundtable groups, they created front groups. And the purpose of these front groups and roundtable groups was to penetrate into the governments of all of these different countries, to penetrate into the media centers, to penetrate into the educational systems. In other words, to penetrate into the social fabric, the power centers of society, and literally take them over from the inside without anybody being aware that they were controlling influence.
After World War I, the International League of Nations arose as a precursor to the United Nations in 1919, under what seemed to be the vision of President Woodrow Wilson and his 14 points.
The League of Nations was the first attempt at the New World Order, the first attempt at a global government based on the model of collectivism. And it was the brainchild of the elitists, the ancestors of the very people who are still working on this project. They're collectivists, the very wealthy people. They're the ones in this country who dominated the powerful tax-exempt foundations, like the Carnegie Endowment Fund for International Peace, the Rockefeller Funds, the Ford Foundation, and groups like that. These people were on record, even way back then, that they had to have a new world government, and they dreamed of that being embodied in the League of Nations. And they were solidly behind it. And that was one of the reasons those people encouraged the United States into World War I, was because of the crisis of World War I, and that would also condition Americans to thinking of making big changes in their system, because we certainly don't want another war like that, do we? There's that fear angle again. And they thought, well, by being in World War I, then we would be a major participant at the table to carve up the world and create a new world government. And that was to be the League of Nations. Well, what happened to it is that the American people didn't really go for it.
Wilson was aware of the elite and their control over society. In his book, The New Freedom, published in 1913, he discussed such a group. Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confided to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States, in the field of commerce and manufacture, are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. Ultimately, this insight did not spare him from becoming yet another puppet of the global elite.
In all of the British dependencies, these organizations, the front groups, were called the Royal Institute for International Affairs. In the United States, they chose a different name. They chose the Council on Foreign Relations, but it held exactly the same relationship to this inner society of Cecil Rhodes.
Among the charter members were W. Averill Harriman of Union Banking, then President of the United States Woodrow Wilson's main advisor, Colonel Edward Mendell House, John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil, banking mogul J.P. Morgan, and prominent bankster Paul Warburg.
Well, the Council on Foreign Relations exists today. It's probably the most powerful single organization in America. Many observers, including myself, believe that it is the hidden government of the United States. These people are not elected to office, and most Americans don't even know who they are. But they are holding all of the important positions in society. There are only about 4,000 of them in the United States, but I don't care what organization you want to look at, whether it's government, or whether it's the universities, or the large media centers, or whatever it is. You look at the people at the tops of those organizations, the owners, the managers, the CEOs, the board of directors, and I'm going to say probably 80 to 90% of the great power centers of America are dominated by just those 4,000 people who are members of the Council on Foreign Relations.
So let me stop it here, because this film is from 2010, all right? And we showed you why we started this, because the CFR is basically promoting that Mao did a good thing, and now there's abundance in China, and yippee-ki-yay, and I pointed that out. And don't worry, we're going to show you a lot more. But right now, you're going to see some members, including, guess what? People that have been relatively big in government in the last 10 years since this film has been out. Can we get over 150 thumbs over on YouTube? We got 200 plus watching. We are a long way to go.
Throughout its history, it would contain extremely influential and powerful individuals in finance, business, media, and politics. Former presidents of the United States include Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and William Jefferson Clinton. Currently, Barack Obama claims not to be a member, but has spoken in front of the council and has had his writings published in the council's magazine, Foreign Affairs.
It's been reported that you and your wife are in the globalist CFR, which is the Council on Foreign Relations. I'd like to know if that is true.
Well, first of all, I'm not the Council on Foreign Relations. I don't know if I'm a official member. I've spoken there before. It basically is just a forum where a bunch of people talk about foreign policy, and so there's nothing. There's no official membership. I don't have a card or, a special handshake or anything like that.
You notice that, he's usually pretty slick, but you could tell he was put on the spot there. Tried to save it a little bit, old Barry Soetoro. But we'll get to that too, because apparently the ex-conspiracy guy, Jonathan, he was going to believe anything about old Barry here. And again, we never went into fantasy world on Barry Soetoro and the gang. And we never went down and said, oh, the QAnon nonsense is real here. No. We keep it factual, okay? And factually, this guy was somebody who was at the CFR and promoting their ideal set.
Now, why is that important? It's important because the avowed purpose of the Council on Foreign Relations is to create a new world order, a global government based on the model of collectivism. And that includes the elimination of the United States as a sovereign nation.
And you just saw Joe Biden's little article out there. Yes, he was a member of the CFR. Weird. Okay. How I Learned to Love the New World Order, a pun, of course, on the Kubrick film Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Love the Nuclear Bomb. Or is it yeah, it's the nuclear bomb, I believe. Let's continue.
That's why it's important. The people running this country are determined to destroy it.
The council was heavily criticized during the 1980s for being an organization hell-bent on destroying national sovereignty in favor of a world government. So many of its members hid their association with the organization. Dick Cheney had this to say in response to a question by David Rockefeller, who became the CFR's youngest director in 1949 and was chairman of the board from 1970 to 1985. He remains an honorary chairman to this day.
Well, he only survived to 101 years old. You know, everybody meets their maker at some point. Just want to point that out there, too.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Now, you are the president of the Council on Foreign Relations, all right? Yes, sir. You guys toy with countries of the world like toys, don't you? You're like the Illuminati, you're the Masons, you control everything, don't you? That's the rap on you guys.
What's so interesting now, though, is who's on the chessboard. The toys, if you will, are a lot more than states.
See, he tells you right there that the idea of nation states aren't a big deal. That's Richard Haass. And Richard Haass is also on camera next to Joey B. as Joey B. brags about withholding $1 billion to the Ukraine in front of the Council on Foreign Relations. Hilarious. Okay, but no. They don't have any influence in politics whatsoever. And no. That tweet wasn't promoting the idea that Mao did good for China and China is the new abundance model.
Notice that Mr. Haass does not deny that the CFR has massive control over the geopolitical arena, and instead tries to focus on the separate entities outside of nation states. Current Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also reveals the importance of the CFR here.
But it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
You have these private...
So we're going to stop it there. You want to see the rest of that film? It is free in the playlist section. All of my films are free, and it's actually highlighted right now at rockfin.com along with Shade the Motion Picture, which I would encourage you to check it out. So at bare minimum, guys, rockfin.com/Jason Bermas is going to take you there. Make that free account. We got a long ways to go on this one. A long ways to go on this one. So basically, I had called this guy, an anonymous loser on Twitter defending Mao and the CFR, which, again, you see this tweet. What's so controversial? Yeah, no, that is defending their position. They're talking up Mao and the society they built, and the CFR is a globalist organization. And I said, what an effing joke. And yes, I read the article, by the way. Totally leaves out the whole genocide-democide thing. All right? And by the way, before I put that out there, and this isn't this guy's fault, okay? I want to make that clear. Twitter warned me. They thought that my reply was potentially harmful or offensive language. How wild is that? So I got warned before I even sent that tweet to this guy. Now, again, we're giving him 100% credit because he linked me over, and it kind of sucks because I actually had to look on his page, but I saw a picture of a person, right? Mostly it's just memes and stuff like that. And that's how I was able to find his identity. He's still not like volunteering it. And here's the thing. I've been doing this a very long time. I'm never going to hide my face. I am proud to be a human being. I am proud to have a different viewpoint based on evidence, okay? Based on actual research outside of the norms of what society tells me is okay. That's a big deal to me. So we went back and forth, and I found this news piece that was done in November. Again, trying to associate the Q and nonsense and all this other stuff with conspiracy theories and why they're bad. It's the same narrative over and over and over again that's trying to what? Demonize free speech, demonize questioning the mainstream media, and demonize people like myself who, again, dare to push back. Dare. But let's look at the New York Times article, for instance, because I really want to say that you have to read this thing and you have to understand, like right here out of the gates, it says, how has this happened? Okay? And they're saying, boy, people don't want to speak their minds anymore in public for fear of repercussions. Well, I mean, you start taking away their bank accounts. You start taking away their jobs, right? You start not allowing them to go to restaurants, okay, or places that are able to socialize unless they think a certain way, act a certain way, and then take certain things. Yeah, that's a problem. But that's not what's brought up in this ever. How has this happened? In large part, it's because the political left and the right, see, it's a left-right issue. Bullshit. It's a human issue. Are caught in a destructive loop of condemnation and recrimination around cancel culture. And they do rightly say that a lot of the right do try to cancel also. You know, I've been extremely critical, for instance, when people like Tucker Carlson tried to say that people who were protesters or rioters or people that took down statues were somehow domestic terrorists. I think that's terrible. I think it's awful. I think it's bad language. Okay? But that's, again, not what they're talking about. In fact, the New York Times is more than happy in most cases to deem anybody they like a terrorist. Let's not mince words otherwise, okay? And as you go through this thing, where is it the part with misinformation that could hurt somebody? All right, because you could hurt someone. Let's see if hurt's the use. It's either hurt or harmful. Let's see, harmful, is that it? Yes, harms. Here it is. So again, they call for censorship. See, I read these things, Jonathan, and I don't fall for their narrative-controlled talking points. We don't need a great narrative. Times opinion, and by the way, this was by the editorial board, okay, commissioned the poll to provide more data and insight that can inform a debate mired in extremes. See, again, everything out of their pre-propagated nonsense talking points on behalf of a predator class, okay, because even those people of the CFR, they're minions. They're minions in most cases, right? All right, this editorial board plans to identify a wide range of threats to freedom of speech in the coming months and to offer possible solutions. Yeah, the solution is to back off, to realize that we're allowed to speak our minds, that we do have a First Amendment, that challenging elections is normal, especially when there's a plethora of evidence to do so. And that doesn't make you behind somebody or part of a political party because you dare to acknowledge the truth. Freedom of speech requires not just a commitment to openness and tolerance in the abstract. It demands, oh, you're demanding from me? Conscientious about the power of speech and its potential harms. Oh, its potential harms. See, harm's in here 7 times. All right? We believe it isn't enough for Americans to just believe in the rights of others to speak freely. They should also find ways to actively support and protect these rights. Sure, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Here now, conservatives have used the idea of harmful speech on their own ends, right? The anti-critical race theory law. And remember, you look at this, and they're trying to use that don't say gay bill. Nothing in it, nothing in the bill has anything to do with saying the word gay. They don't want children sexualized. I don't want it either. All right, go. It's queer something. I forget what the name is of the book, But, you know, it's one of the books they don't want in what is it, gender queer, something like that. And I don't have an opposition to it because it has queer in the title, or it's about gender or homosexuality or any of it. I have an objection that, again, they have a visualization, an illustration of pedophilia in the book. Doesn't need to be in the schools. But again, the New York Times wants to twist it, and they're going to go with, these bills include Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. They're deceptive. They're dishonest. Look at this. Oh, there's the hole. There's the speech hole. And they're trying to pose as the saviors. It's repugnant and disgusting. Okay? So that's, you know, just one of those things that really, it cooks my butter. It makes me upset. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play this clip of this gentleman. He's the ex-conspiracy guy, folks, on Backstory.
Conspiracy theories used to be part of the fringe, but the internet has made these false ideas more rampant, often with dangerous or even deadly consequences.
See, it's dangerous and deadly to have ideas that this guy doesn't think you should have. See how they frame it? It's crazy.
Believers aren't all crackpots. Some are even intelligent. So why do smart people believe claims that are far-fetched or downright silly? We all like to think we're critical thinkers, but so many of us become gullible victims by failing to detect weak evidence. Why?
It's actually true, but again, it's aimed at anybody that goes against their narrative. And even this professor that talks, it just boggles my mind, some of the things they say.
Let's take a look. 1835, famed astronomer John Herschel discovers a civilization of bat people on the moon. Everyone knows it's true. It's right there in the New York Sun. Of course, it's a hoax.
And that's what makes it a magical belief, is when you reject observable evidence in the base of an explanation that's based on something that you can't observe.
See, that's actually true. But they invert that all the time, because I'm going to show you observable evidence when it comes to the World Trade Center and science in a moment, right? And here's the deal. You know, you talk about the bat people. What they're going to love to do is associate any type of power structure, quote unquote, conspiracy theory that's not endorsed by the mainstream with Bigfoot and aliens and things like that. And of course, QAnon nonsense.
People love a great story, and a juicy conspiracy theory seems to offer something many people crave: certainty.
And again, I don't offer certainty at all. I offer real evidence and possibilities and the direction in which society is going because of the global events that are happening around us, and then the narratives they are trying to use to control and enslave us. Again, information as well as technology is a double-edged sword. They can use it to what? Empower you with that info, or enslave you with what I would call disinfo.
For some, any answer is better than no answer. It helps them navigate a reality that can be overwhelming and confusing.
When people have beliefs, they hold fast to them. They're like life preservers in a stormy sea. They're not going to let go of them.
Weird. Just like kind of like party politics and people that are obsessed with being a Republican or a Democrat. See, a lot of the things the professor actually says is true in relation to real life, but everything is targeted and aimed at quote unquote conspiracy theories and lizard people.
But life doesn't mirror the narrative of a novel with neat plot lines, conflicts, and resolutions.
Actually, I've read plenty of nonfiction where there are novels based on lives of everything that guy just said that have nothing to do with the geopolitical nature, by the way. They are complex. It's absurd, some of the things they put out here. So here he is. This is the ex-conspiracy guy that, again, wanted to tweet out that I hadn't read the New York Times article and it was a pro-free speech article, and he wanted to tweet out that, what do you mean? The CFR is not really praising Mao. Get out of here.
And for some people, like Jonathan Szymanski of Florida, that is terrifying.
Number one cause for me is politics. Any anti-Obama conspiracy basically at the time I would believe in.
So let's stop. Anti-Obama conspiracy at the time, I would believe it. Well, the first things first, okay? We're not going to talk birth certificates. We're going to talk the fact that this guy went all the way through high school with a name, Barry Soetoro. He played high school basketball as Barry Soetoro. And the vast majority of us, okay, unless you get into show business or there's some other pre-positioned plan for you, keep our names. Barry Soetoro. So here's what happens when you type in Barry Soetoro into Google, right? Now you can find, this picture right here behind me where you can see Barry, and he's this little dude right here, right? Mixed Races of America in front of the chalkboard, and he is right over my head. Again, you can see it. But what they try to do is give you a hoax. The Columbia University one where it says Barry Soetoro, and then they show you that this is fake via Snopes, and they make light of it. However, that does not stop the fact that the guy grew up as Barry Soetoro. Now, that is supposedly his father. Now, you look at this guy's face. Let's open that image in another tab. Okay? Now, I'm not saying, and by the way, this is Barack Obama's mother, and we're not going to bring up her nude photographs, okay? In fact, I'm going to go off just to make sure they don't come up in what I'm about to search. But Frank Marshall Davis was somewhat of a mentor to Barack Obama, and we know people have affairs, okay? We also know that Barack Obama and his parents, the ones they tell you work for the Kissinger Institute. Okay, so this is a guy, and good, nothing crazy came up, called Frank Marshall Davis. Okay, now look at the guy's cheeks. Okay, I mean, seriously, take a good look at that dude's cheeks. Right there. There's Frank Marshall Davis. Now, look at those cheeks on Barack Star, a.k.a. Barry at the time. Look at that. Just look at that head and that face. And as they get older, this is him much older. This is them side by side. I'm not saying that, dreams of my real father is 100% correct, but am I allowed to ask the question when the guy, again, went by Barry Soetoro? You know what? There's a good shot of, and he was, by the way, Frank Marshall Davis was supposedly taking these pictures. And there's some censorship. So, I don't know, did you believe, I don't know what quote-unquote conspiracy theories you believed, Jonathan, but that's what I like to call a reality. And the reality is that in 2004, Barack Star was still just a state senator. But you know what he was? He was the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention, where he was to be elected in 2004 to his first real position as a actual senator. Okay, 6-year term. Within 3 years of that, he announces he's going to run for president. He wins. He's the most unexperienced guy ever. Bush before him had less experience as the governor of Texas. Okay, but to that point, most unexperienced ever. And he becomes the president magically. A guy named Barry, who they told you was Barack. So again, I don't know what conspiracy theories you believe on that one, but I want to lay that down as fact. Okay, that's fact.
It may be more comforting to think a small group is in control. A small group can be defeated. Complex causes seem like we're caught in a web that's impossible to untangle.
First of all, I talk about how complex this is all the time. I talk about compartmentalization. I talk about the military-industrial complex. I talk about the post-World War II world. I talk about need to know and the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. I talk about the black sites like Area 51 and others and how they have nothing to do at all with aliens, and instead advanced technology that is being withheld from the public. So yeah, it is really, really complex. I talk about signature reduction. No one else seems to want to talk about that. Yeah, it's complex. There isn't one small group we can topple. I constantly discuss that. I constantly talk about power vacuums.
Any animal that doesn't make sense of its surrounding is going to be dinner pretty soon. What conspiracy theories do is provide us these shortcuts for managing our own emotions. They're kind of like Xanax. They're like an easy Xanax for us. They basically help us feel better.
So what, should I take regular Xanax to feel better? None of these things make me feel better. It's absolutely ridiculous to say that and then try to equate the pleasure with a serotonin reuptake inhibitor that I would advise you don't take.
It works for Jonathan Szymanski, at least for a while. Is there a way to help people avoid the dark world of misinformation emanating from the bright lights of media channels or the dark corners of the internet?
Fact versus fiction. And we all know how well those fact checkers have done over the last 2 years of COVID 1984. They've been stellar.
Conspiracies are real. Colonials conspire to rebel against King George. Conspiracy theories also go back a long way.
Let me just stop that. You notice that they're still trying to now equate the founding fathers of overthrow. Oh, that's the real conspiracy, right? Listen, people get charged with conspiracy all the time. And the book that they're about to reference here, I would suggest people read it. It's a great book. And I'm not saying everything in it is 100% factually accurate, but if you think that the history books you've been reading are 100% factually accurate, you're in la la land. What's wrong with having different perspectives? What's wrong with comparing the notes of different scholars and different writers from a time period against the facts available? What's the big issue there?
Late 18th century British mathematician John Robison writes a book, Proofs of a Conspiracy, which claims the Illuminati masterminded the French Revolution. A few Massachusetts ministers like Jebediah Morse believe this conspiracy theory and worry the Illuminati will abolish Christianity and overthrow the American government. But in time, the evidence outweighs their imagination.
Now, yeah, I just want to show some people because we're going to go back to that. But do you want to notice something from that book? Oh, is that an owl sitting at the top there? You know, we've done stuff on the Bohemian Grove, and boy, the Bohemian Grove does some weird stuff too, and none of those people are powerful, right? Huh? Oh, but the evidence and the imagination. I don't imagine things. I get their own annals. We do watch-alongs with news footage and interviews.
Imagination.
American political history is rife with conspiracy theories.
Eric Oliver is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago. He becomes interested in conspiracy theories in the 1990s when a man stops him on a street corner handing out conspiracy theories on paper.
Nobody really knows the secret formula, but I think those conspiracy theories that have probably greater staying power are more likely to tap into our intuitive ways of understanding the world.
So let's stop. It's all new agey, it's all intuition, it's no facts. Now, first of all, as human beings, as a species on this planet, we do have intuition. Okay? There is a fight or flight mechanism built into us and many another species. Okay? And it is part of our overall communication. And sometimes you should listen to that inner voice inside. But then to conflate that with a warm, fuzzy feeling of information that are conspiracy theories and new agey, and that's why they stick around, that's a lot of Johnny nonsense.
Handing out flyers on a street corner or delivering political pamphlets by horseback in colonial America is nothing compared to the digital distribution of ideas which disseminate around the world with one click.
What social media has done, it's allowed for what we might call transgressive beliefs, beliefs that really fall outside of the mainstream norm, to have this ability to proliferate.
Social media.
So again, transgressive beliefs outside of the norm are not inherently false, nor are they conspiracy theories. And once again, they try to blame social media, which in many cases is acting as what? A Trojan horse civilian system for a predator class narrative on behalf of the government. I mean, Google in bed with NASA for well over a decade in things including artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Give me a break. And they talk about Facebook and the algorithm. So, there was a time period where there was this push of actual fake news. We've talked about this, where after every celebrity death, it was Illuminati, and, there was neonnetal.com and a bunch of these other sites, things like even Veterans Today, right? They would constantly put out stuff that would have maybe a partial bit of truth and then just totally made up sources all over. And those things would proliferate, all right? And then they acted like when those things got out of control, that's all misinformation, right? And these people were doing it for the clicks in the algorithm. So now it's their responsibility to censor on behalf of the government.
Media companies' algorithms value clicks over facts. The business model is engagement, sometimes at the expense of a well-informed society.
And I think that's really dangerous for democracy.
Jonathan Szymanski.
See, ideas are dangerous. Now, notice it's never dangerous when the mainstream media lies to you about weapons of mass destruction or chemical attacks in Duma. Things that actually pop off real missiles, real warfare, real drones in the sky. Right? And again, now, this guy's going to be like, oh, we need a collective narrative or it's dangerous. I went to university. I understand now that things are complex.
Agrees. He's now an ex-conspiracy theorist. How does that happen?
Basic college education. I took a few foreign policy classes in college, and that really opened my eyes to how complicated the world is, which is, once you realize that, it's hard to have a paranoid view when things are that random sometimes.
So now it's a paranoid view because he went to college. I know Jason Bermas is just a beauty school dropout that's run a bar and done some videography and, things outside of the alternative media. But obviously, this guy, he took a few college courses on how the world works, and that's it. He knows.
Truth is complicated and often dull.
Oh, see, that's also bullshit. Truth is complicated and often dull. No, it's often like way weirder and way more bizarre, just like the Epstein case, right? Just like Bill Gates and eugenics, than you could ever imagine in a novel or a film or a TV series. But again, these are the narratives that they're trying to sell you on as the authoritative ones.
Conspiracy theories blur facts with fantasy. Starting in 2017, the online conspiracy theory movement QAnon helps move these ideas from the margins to the mainstream.
I think what happened with QAnon was that it was sufficiently mysterious and poetic that it really captured people's imaginations. It was a very well-constructed set of myths that were...
There was nothing well-constructed about it. It was a bunch of ridiculous hopium and grifters. And it looks like it came out of DEF CON originally. We never bought into it. We always told you it was Johnny Nonsense. We always told you Guantanamo Bay was a bad place. We always told you there weren't secret white hats coming to save you. All right, but again, they were able to equate the QAnon with anybody that dared to question the election, right? They banned so many people on that. And again, if you believed in the QAnon, then all of a sudden high-level pedophilia didn't exist. And don't worry, they're gonna say the P-Gate stuff, and we'll get into that in a moment.
Out there that were just intriguing enough that people wanted to see what would happen next, and it was always, we'll give you an update next week.
Popular conspiracy theories include the idea that California wildfires are set deliberately by space-based laser beams. That's posted on social media by Marjorie Taylor Greene, now a congresswoman from Georgia. The Pizzagate conspiracy theory claims Democratic Party officials run a human trafficking and child sex ring in restaurants. Claims like these seem ridiculous, but in some cases, people act on them. One man claiming to investigate Pizzagate in 2016 fires a rifle inside a pizza place in Washington. On Christmas...
Now, let's just talk about that for a second. I just want to point out that somehow he hit the computer there. Anybody can look that up, and that guy hit the computer there. All right? And let's just read one of these emails right here, okay? Basically, the New York Times, this is this is from 2018. And again, this is way back when the New York Times contacted me, and we'll bring it up about Alex Jones. Jason, hi, my name is Emily Steele. I'm a reporter with the New York Times. I'm working on this article about InfoWars and Alex Jones and was interested in talking with you about your experience there. This was a huge hit piece on Jones. Can you please give me a call? And, gave me your phone number. And I said, I'd be more than happy to talk with you as soon as your publication addresses this email to John Podesta, among other people, in which he is going to a farm to be entertained by 3 small children, ages 7, 9, and 11, in a heated pool. I anxiously await your response. That was the end of our conversation. And let me take myself out so I can read you the actual email, because I didn't write this email. But anybody who has small children or common sense understands that this is not a good thing. With enormous gratitude to advance man extraordinaire Haber, I am popping up again to share our excitement about the reprise of our gang's visit to the farm in Lovettsville. Okay? And you see the capitalizations of what this is. And I thought I'd share a couple more notes. We plan to heat the pool, so a swim is a possibility. Bonnie will be the Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Lozado, 11, 9, and almost 7. Who puts the ages of children in emails? So you'll have some further entertainment. Since when are 7, 9, and 11-year-olds entertainment? And they will be in that pool for sure. What? And I actually shared that email with this woman who's doing this series called Shadowlands. Apparently they didn't choose Jason Bermas because he didn't buy into the QAnon nonsense, and he can prove everything he says. And she was disturbed by this email and couldn't make anything up. But again, let's not question that. Let's not question a guy who runs a pizza shop, okay, and has an abhorrent Instagram feed with his profile picture. Again, Antinous, the god of man-boy love. Yeah. Let's not question that event whatsoever. No, let's make it about Democrats. Okay, sure. Let's not question Podesta either, right?
This morning of 2020, Anthony Quinn Warner packs his RV with explosives and detonates it in Nashville, blowing up his RV and himself. Police say he's motivated in part by a fear of 5G technology and alien lizard people.
So lizard people, 5G, again, we did real videos on 5G in the respect that it is different than other communication systems. And there are concerns that, for instance, the frequency wave can actually penetrate your skin. But no. Nut boy over here, he blew stuff up. Lizard people, 5G. Can we get over 200 thumbs up, 300 plus watching this one? And we've gone long. We're an hour and 8. We're not done. We got plenty. We got a lot of engine in this tank tonight.
In my research, I basically figured...
Or gas in this engine of a tank tonight. Now it is getting late.
Out that the world is divided between people who are very rationalistic in their orientation. They believe in logic, they believe in facts, they believe in science. And there are people who really rely heavily on their intuitions to make judgments. And they are really drawn by symbols and metaphors and myths.
And by the way, I don't make judgments on those, on metaphors and myths, okay? Instead, I use hardcore evidence. And that's why when I tell you that, for instance, the temperatures, I believe in science, at the bottom of the World Trade Center for days and weeks after, 2,000 plus degree temperatures were not possible from jet fuel. Okay? And yes, molten metal was found dripping for days, even by Building 6. And yes, the officials had to deny this and act like it was imagination land. Okay? Because they didn't want to deal with the actual facts. So I'll deal with the actual facts. This is a large segment from Loose Change Final Cut. And again, remember, all my films are free, guys. You want to support me? Down below, the links are there. Rockfin. Make the premium account. Don't do it on your phone. Go to the desktop. Go to rockfin.com/Jason Bermas. Hit that subscribe button. $9.99 for the year, or $99.99. $9.99 for the month, $99.99 for the year. You get everybody's premium content. But again, I'm trying to get the information out. I want you to take this and share it with people. It's free.
The final report was released on October 26, 2005, producing over 10,000 pages. It will not explain the actual collapse of the buildings. They only claim to get to collapse initiation and state flatly that it led to global collapse. The report, admittedly, does not actually include the structural behavior of the tower after the conditions for initiation were reached and collapse became inevitable.
We were charged with finding out the cause of the collapse, and we found what happened. I think we've scientifically demonstrated what was required to initiate the collapse. Once the collapse initiated, the video evidence is rather clear. It was not stopped by the floors below, so there was no calculation that we did to demonstrate that, what is clear from the videos.
Do you hear that? They just, when he gets asked why they didn't do that, he just says, look at the video. All right? Yeah. I'm into symbols and myths and not science and reality. Let's kick this one down.
NIST concludes that they found no evidence suggesting that the World Trade Center towers were brought down by controlled demolition. Where would people get an idea like that? 1. Except for material that was blown outwards, the Twin Towers collapsed into their own footprint symmetrically at nearly free-fall speeds. Newton's laws of motion determine how long it takes an object to travel a certain distance in complete freefall. In a controlled environment, an object dropped from the roof of either twin tower would reach the ground in 9.2 seconds. The 9/11 Commission report will state, at 9:58, the South Tower collapsed in 10 seconds. Even NIST says the tops of the buildings came down essentially in free fall. Judge for yourself.
Pretty obvious when you actually look at it. But again, we don't believe in mythos here. We do science. You know, the basic stuff they used to teach people.
And our conclusion is that the building should not have fallen that rapidly if indeed fire caused the collapse. And so, in fact, there's one mechanical engineer, Gordon Ross, in the Journal of 911 Studies, who's done a thorough analysis based on conservation momentum.
If the official story was correct, then the heating that was supposed to cause the failure would have been a much slower event, and it would have been an asymmetric event. For the tower to collapse straight down onto itself flies in the face of what we know about steel and how steel behaves. When we have a failure in one area, then the failures tend to continue within that area, and you'd see an asymmetric collapse, possibly the upper section falling off as it twisting away from the tower and falling off. But it's very unusual to see the upper section falling straight through the path of the greatest resistance, which was straight down through the middle of the tower. It just does not add up.
2. Molten metal exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit was discovered in the rubble of Ground Zero, underneath the Twin Towers and Building 7.
And I just want to say, I am never going to apologize for doing the right thing. I am never going to apologize for questioning an absurd narrative that was projected on a populace on the sacrificial altar of what we are talking about here. And that is a very, very real globalist, predator class, New World Order agenda. Believe it.
Even with heavy rain on September 14th and 21st, a constant stream of fire retardants and water, described as creating a giant lake, these fires would not be extinguished until December 13th, 2001, making it the longest burning structural fire in history. Was the jet fuel responsible? Dr. Frank Gale, who was working with NIST, claimed in 2005. Your gut reaction would be that the jet fuel melted the steel. Indeed, it did not. The steel did not melt.
The temperatures that we know existed within the collapse, within the debris pile, are physically impossible from an atmospheric jet fuel fire. Cannot be done.
I'm curious about the pool of molten steel that was found in the bottom of the towers.
I am too.
And
Please tell me about it.
See, again, now John Gross is going to make a joke about it. He knows there was molten steel there. He damn well knows, but he's denying it. And then once that information is tried to be presented to him, he doesn't want it because he knows. That's not part of the show, cowboy.
Have you seen it?
well, not personally, but eyewitnesses there found huge poles of molten steel beneath the towers, and some scientists don't think that the collapse of the building could have melted all that steel.
First of all, let's go back to your basic premise that there was a pool of molten steel. I know of absolutely nobody, and no eyewitness who said so, nobody who's produced it. I was on the site, I was on the steel yards, so I don't know that that's so.
You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails. Like you're in a foundry.
Yeah, like lava.
Like lava.
From a volcano.
Now, no one there, and he goes, no, we didn't see that. I mean, this is part of the public record. Okay, this is Ken Holden of FEMA talking about molten metal in Building 6.
Ground, it was still so hot that molten metal dripped down the sides of a wall from Building 6.
However, they do hit hot spots occasionally, and everything stops.
There were fires of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit below the ground.
I don't know that that's so.
There's video of it.
Melted around 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's probably pretty difficult to get that kind of temperatures in a fire.
Well, NASA pictures, thermal images showed those sorts of temperatures in the basement.
Would you send them to me?
Okay. My name is Mark, and I'm the individual who was questioning Dr. Gross, and he asked me to email to him those thermal images. When I approached him after his talk to get his email address for that purpose, he refused to provide it to me.
And that just shows you what's really going on. You know, these people try to put on a show. It's pathetic. Let's finish up this news clip and this overall broadcast. I want to thank all you guys for joining me, but we still got a few more minutes here. And again, I believe in science. I believe in evidence. I don't believe in, quote-unquote, symbols and metaphors and mythos.
In this category of people, they tend to have a lot of supernatural beliefs. They have a lot of paranormal beliefs.
Conspiracy theorists may claim to be skeptics, challenging the prevailing wisdom, but deciphering evidence can be difficult. They tend to cherry-pick the facts that make their case. Real skeptics use science, while conspiracists rely on their emotional filter, what speaks to them, for whatever reason, usually a sense of fear or unfairness.
When my son was 5, he woke me up in the middle of the night and said, Dad, there's a monster in the closet. There's a monster in the closet. And I went through and I opened the closet and I turned on all the lights and I said, Ethan, there's no monster here. Look, we can reason through. There's no monster. The house is secure. And then he turns to me and he looks and he says, well, Dad, there's no monster in the closet. Then why am I afraid? And that was a really telling moment there, because it was clear that, you know, his beliefs are there to serve his emotional needs. They're not actually there to give an accurate representation of reality.
Yeah, why is your kid afraid though, bro? You don't seem to know why there. And to just bring that in and trying to make it about emotions, that had no scientific basis whatsoever. That in itself was to try to emotionally make you think that these people, conspiracy theorists, think that the monsters are everywhere and they don't really exist. Think about that for a second. That was an emotion-based comment.
A child may be easier to set straight than an adult set in their ways. Is there a strategy that works?
One of the things that we've learned...
And by the way, the Seth Rich one, yeah, we should be questioning about Seth Rich. We should all be listening to what Seymour Hersh said on those recorded phone calls that I've covered ad nauseum via Seth Rich and the DNC quote-unquote leaks. Remember? It was all Russian disinformation, and Julian Assange and Russia worked to hack the election. See, that wasn't even a conspiracy theory. That was an outright lie and disinformation presented by the mainstream media that even media that was trying to be honest would say was their conspiracy theory.
It is simply going forward and telling people your beliefs are wrong or this is not correct. Generally doesn't work. What I oftentimes do when I'm talking to people is sort of say, well, what is this belief doing for you? How is this working for you? So you have this conspiracy theory. How is that helping your life? Is that making things really better for you?
Now, is the corporate narrative right now of you having to pay for, more for gas and sacrifice more and lock yourself in your home when they tell you and put things in your body when they tell you, is that working out for you? I live in a place called reality, okay? And just because something is true and makes me feel uncomfortable doesn't mean I should buy into a false narrative. This news piece is just gross, man. It's gross.
And what about tech companies? Do they bear some responsibility in all of this?
Given the fact that they have a profit structure and they really benefit from living in a stable political order that we provide, they have a responsibility to sustaining that.
Jonathan Szymanski has a Facebook page called The Ex-Conspiracy Theorist Guide to open a dialogue with conspiracy theorists, which include many former friends.
Mostly online, they accuse me of being a government shill or someone who got paid by the government.
Well, guess what? We never did that. No, that's not something we did here. Instead, we're going to have Jonathan on, and he is more than welcome to tell me why I am a conspiracy theorist and what theories that I present are incorrect and why. So for those that don't know, I'm calling fights this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That means that we have weigh-ins tomorrow. I actually have a 9 a.m. broadcast with Todd McGreevy of the River Cities Reader on as well. So we're going to try to book him sometime next week. I will DM him. Maybe I will DM him late this weekend or early next week, and we're going to get him on. We're going to see what he has to say, because we didn't accuse him of anything but being a bootlicker for establishment narratives, which he continues to be.
I think it encourages civil discourse, the idea of us being able to have a shared reality. Like if we can't agree about what's actually happening, we'll get nothing done.
That's very Orwellian. Somehow if we have agreement, we can have civil discourse? What? I mean, think about that for a second. Civil discourse is bringing people of different viewpoints together, which me and him are going to do, and then having a conversation. It's not agreeing on a narrative and then going from there.
Once we have leaders being able to tell constituents when they're wrong, that'll be a step forward.
So leaders that can tell the serf class that they're wrong, that's when things are going to get better. Folks, if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs it up, subscribe, and share, okay? We constantly get taken down here. We've had the channel taken 4 times, not suspended, taken 4 times. We've got it back every time. Okay, the last time that they suspended me down, again, they took down 8 separate videos. 8 videos for my Strike 2, cyberbullying, Epstein, a whole lot of Johnny nonsense. We back up what we talk about on this broadcast. So subscribe, share, let people know about the channel. But Rockfin. So many more videos on Rockfin, the uncensored versions of the video on Rockfin. That's where you can support me. You go on a desktop, you hit that subscribe, $9.99 a month or $99.99 for the year. Save yourself $20. Other great independent journalists on there like Michael Tracy, Max Blumenthal, Jimmy Dore, Slow News Day, and many, many others. TheInfoWarrior.podbean.com. That's where you're going to be able to find this broadcast in audio format. I'll probably be posting it up there tomorrow. It's also where you can find video casts too. We got Mixed Martial Mindset both in video and off video, if you like. So make sure to go follow me over there. We're on Spotify and other platforms. But the Podbean is what we're throwing out there. We want to thank Odyssey for backing up my YouTube channel because inevitably it could be gone for good. We want to remind everybody that the documentary films that you saw portions of are always free. Loose Change Final Cut, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. Check them out today. And then please also check out Fabled Enemies and Shade the Motion Picture. It is not about left or right. It is not about fantasies. It is not about paranoia. It is about confronting reality as adults and challenging this great reset agenda that has a great narrative behind it. I love you guys, and I will see you on the flip.